Uh, I'd like to make a video talking about my thoughts on the current situation in Minnesota and the ice raids. Now, I used to make a lot of more political videos, but the situation changes so rapidly and things are so basically confusing. There's a lot going on, and by the time I sit down and think about it, the situation has changed, so the information that I'm making in the video is pointless. But I was going to make videos about these ice raids and all the commotion it started, no matter where they went. And I guess in Minnesota, it's reaching a head here. It's worse than any of the other places. Okay, it was always up there in Oregon, Washington, California, and then Chicago. But I guess things went down in Chicago and you don't hear about it anymore. I don't even know if they're there. And ICE did come to my state here in North Carolina, and there really weren't any protests. There was one raid where they arrested somebody, and I knew someone in Chicago. And I asked them at this time, this was a couple months ago, okay, I said, what's going on there? And everyone tells you the same thing. When ICE comes, they're looking for certain people. They are not taking people from bus stops. They don't have roadblocks and that. And the one thing that everyone is forgetting to tell you, because I knew someone where they worked, they were told by their superiors that ICE probably will not show up here, but if they do, they will have a warrant. And if you don't like it for whatever political reason, do not obstruct them from what they are doing. Basically, they said ICE will not just come here out of the blue. If ICE does come into the building, they will have a warrant, an actual federal warrant. My friend in Chicago told me it isn't like they're setting up roadblocks or checkpoints. He goes, they're coming in here and they're looking for specific people. Okay? So now we go to Minnesota, Indianapolis. All right? And it's a little bit different there. Where you have the elected officials telling the people to resist and to stop them. And the public outcry that they want ICE out of their state. What I really believe is happening with ICE is the way our economy is going to change. It has to, with the trillions and trillions of dollars in debt. So something is going on where they're going to change our economy one way or the other, whether we like it or not. And I believe these ICE raids are, arresting people who have outstanding warrants for their arrests anyway, some in foreign countries and that. But I believe also the underlying goal is to break up and disrupt the illegal narcotics trade, which is rampant in this country. And the issue with it, and why governors, mayors, and all these people are up in arms or telling their citizens to resist and all this other stuff, is because it is also exposing the level of corruption in some of these areas that is unbelievable. Okay? By disassembling the narcotics pipeline and system, which is illegal, I think it's 800 some billion a year, and that's untraceable money. They're not quite sure how much goes on. And I've also noticed that as these raids go from one place to the other and they supposedly arrest and deport all these people, you see all these strange things, like a guy buys an abandoned storage unit and finds 500,000 fentanyl pills in the machine to make them, and actually the raw material in this locker in little storage boxes. And you hear of these raids where they're raiding industrial level places, warehouses and systems where there's tons, they're talking about tons of narcotics being found in this intricate system, which involves people who are elected officials. It involves people in law enforcement, okay, that have been planted there. They said that there was 2 upstanding members that were in this local law enforcement thing that covered up a lot of stuff. They're exposing that judges, lawyers, and elected officials are all kind of involved somehow in this. Not only the drug trade, but then when they trace them from the narcotics, they expose a lot of other fraud where taxpayer money is going into these non-profits or some, you know, they're taking taxpayer money and, you know, committing fraud with it. All right, plain and simple. Now that's why you would have a governor or a mayor or whatever tell its citizens to stop federal law enforcement from issuing the warrants and doing their duty. Okay? And what's going on in Minnesota is criminal. Okay, but see, another thing is the reason they're really not pushing, nailing politicians is because our whole system of government will fold up like a house of cards, because I believe the corruption and the level of corruption throughout the whole country, okay, is bad. And when they start investigating, and you know, you got judges being involved here, you know, high-ranking elected officials, and you know, you're going to see our government's on the verge of a collapse internally. Okay, so that's what's going on. Now we get into these people and this protest and outcry, and I see a pattern. First one, tragically, was the woman who tried to run over an officer supposedly and was shot. And this sparked a whole big thing. And they were going to make her a martyr, protest, all this demonstrations. And come to find out on Facebook, which I'm kind of glad they did this, people started putting up her arrest record and talking about who she was, what she did, and all this other stuff. So that kind of fizzled out. So the next attempt they had was where a veteran, a military veteran, and this is a big political thing about veterans, was arrested and detained by ICE for hours, and then they released him. So they ask him how it happens. And of course he says, well, I showed up in my neighborhood. And the drug cartels and the criminals, they live in, you know, they're not down in the worst section of town. They're in nice neighborhoods. Okay, it's a perfect cover. No one suspects them. And he said that ICE was arresting some of my neighbors, so I went there to see what was going on. All right. Are you involved with them? Do you know them? Are they friends, relatives, people you work with? What? You know, he just said, well, I went down in my neighborhood to see what was going on. And it shows that he went across the lawn. They were bringing these 2 individuals out. And then he approached and accosted the, you know, law enforcement people that were arresting these people. So he is, you know, obstructing justice. He's obstructing. So they arrested him. And of course they're trying to figure out why is this person obstructing the arrest warrants issued. And they took him down there, you know, and they sorted out who he was and they let him go. So now he's on TV. I'm an innocent man. I'm an American citizen. I'm a veteran. And I was detained by ICE uncontrollably and they didn't give me no answers or nothing and everything else. And So now this latest one, Saturday morning. Okay, that wasn't good enough. Okay, they couldn't do the veteran. They're like trying to play on everyone's emotion. They couldn't do the veteran saying that he was innocent, but he was sticking his nose in an arrest. Which, if it isn't ICE, if the sheriff come next door and was dragging my neighbor out, and I went over there and approached him and started saying something to him and got close, and they told me just mind your own business and stand off, but I insisted or kept screwing with him, I'd be in the next police car. Okay, that's just the way things work. So now, Saturday rolls around, another protest. Supposedly this guy, from what clips I've seen, of course you're not going to see the whole thing or get the whole explanation, he runs up, goes over there, and it was Customs or Border Patrol agents, and he gets in a struggle with them. And he has a gun. Okay, and from what I've seen, they're trying to arrest him, and I mean, he had 4 or 5 people on, and he's struggling with them. Okay, anytime the police detain you, you don't struggle. Because all it's going to do is create more legal problems for yourself. They tell you get out of the car, get arrested. You know, they ain't going to smash all the windows out of your vehicle, they'll just impound it. And that, you know, sensibly. Because I can't afford to have my car torn to shreds for a traffic violation or blocking a road or something. So they get this guy, he's resisting. I mean, he was resisting bad. There's 5 or 6 of them on there, on top of him. And somehow he kind of got up, and then they shot him. And now they're saying that he was executed and this police brutality. But he did have a gun and 2 17-round magazines with him in there. At least that's what they're showing. Full-size 9. All of us that are gun owners that, you know, are on this channel know I have a concealed carry permit. Okay, I can legally carry a concealed weapon. Well, the first thing they do before they issue it to you is you go to a class, and this individual explains to you step by step the laws of your state and locale, how you can use deadly force, and all this other stuff. They give you all this legal stuff. And everywhere, or just about anywhere that I know of, you cannot carry, even if you have the permit. You're not supposed to carry a weapon to a large public gathering, a parade, or a protest. That is plain and clear. If you want to go protest peacefully, you leave your gun at home. Okay? You can get your permit revoked by being, you know, at a protest carrying a weapon, in a bar drunk carrying a weapon. There's several ways that you can lose your right to carry. And going to a protest or political function armed is one of them. Okay? You're not supposed to do it. And I think that's kind of a very common way of looking. I know that's the way it is in my state. Okay, I don't know about other places and locales. So, he was wrong to begin with. Okay? And struggling like he did, that's another. All of these people struggle. Okay, and turn it into a spectacle. I believe this is wrong. I believe, you know, the person was wrong, and now there's an outcry, another murder, more of this. And again, it goes back. The politicians want ICE out of there because they're exposing the level of corruption in our government that everyone wants to cover up. And that's my thoughts on it. Where this is going to go, at least the Trump administration and the people that are involved are coming out publicly and saying, you know, this is domestic terrorism, which in a way it is. Okay, yeah, if you want to go protest, carry signs, and show your support, stand off, attacking, throwing things, trying to run over, blocking, the ICE agents. Well, blocking and obstructing a public roadway is a crime anyway, no matter who you're blocking or obstructing. It doesn't have to be ICE. Okay? This is against the law. You can be arrested for it. Alright? So, yes, it's not peaceful protest. The news is saying these are peaceful protesters, that they were executed and this and that. Well, when you threaten, law enforcement when they're doing their job and they have the legal writs to do it, okay, that's not protesting. That is obstruction of justice. Okay, it is a form of rebellion. It is a form, attacking people, blocking the road, carrying a weapon, okay, is domestic terrorism. So they're calling it right. Now, and of course, he was a law-abiding, this is what I love, he was a law-abiding gun owner that had a permit to carry it, and he was shot down by ICE, killed by ICE, murdered, executed, they even used the term. Which, any of us who is sensible knows that, yeah, if you're looking to get shot, go to a demonstration, interfere with warrants being served and law enforcement doing their thing, and be armed to the teeth while you do it. Yeah, that's a real smart move. Okay? But I don't know where this is going to end. We're in the middle of the snow crisis, and this is a disaster. The whole eastern part of the United States is, I'm lucky. I haven't lost power yet. There's a lot of places that are in bad shape. And all of this is going on. And it ain't warm up there. If it's 17 degrees down here in North Carolina, it's got to be negative numbers up there. Okay, Minneapolis. So this is insane. And it's all happening with a lot of other political things going on, and wars, and Greenland or whatever, Iceland. This is crazy. So where's it going to end? I don't know. I believe there should be investigations into a lot of the elected officials in that state, and probably several others too, even mine here, I don't think, the corruption exists everywhere. So we'll see how it all works out in that, but, I really don't want to see anybody killed over this nonsense, but in a way, these people are kind of asking for it. Alright, thank you, and stay tuned.